We're here with Dr. Irfaan Ali, the presidential candidate of the People's Progressive Party. He has been a former minister of government, managing two major ministries. He has also been the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, as well as the shadow finance minister. Welcome to the program, Mr. Ali.
Thank you very much, Davina. It's good to be here.
Great. So let's just get right into it. It has been 10 months since you have been elected your party's presidential candidate. Could you tell us what you have been up to during this time to ensure your message and your party's message gets out to the people?
Thank you very much. Definitely, I can share with you. The last 10 months, I was not even checking the time, but the last 10 months has been intense, connecting with people, listening to people, understanding their issues in a practical way, visiting communities all across this country, looking at their priorities, what they see as their priorities, what they see as national issues, and what they see as the core issues that can change their lives, improve their prospects in the various communities. So it has been time spent on the ground, connecting to people, with people, listening to people, understanding their concerns, understanding the way the way things are working on the ground, where the weaknesses are, where there are strengths, and what is needed to improve the overall delivery of good governance, effective governance, and efficient governance and services to the people all across this country. So the 10 months has been a lot of this. And you know too that we're in the process of developing our manifesto. And in that manifesto, you will see it's reflective of a lot of the views from these encounters on the ground. It will be reflective of the real issues, the real problems, solutions to the real issues, real problems facing people across the country. It will speak directly to the needs of some communities. And over the last 10 months also, I've had the opportunity to interact with various stakeholders and segments of the Guyanese population. For a matter of fact, in crafting our manifesto, for the first time, we have opened up this process to the public, and maybe the only political party that has done so. And to the extent that we have persons who participated in that process are now the prime ministerial candidates for other political parties. So this is important. This is important so that our manifesto can be nationalistic. It can be reflective of the national sentiments out there. It can be reflective and demonstrate a responsiveness to what are the priorities of all stakeholders. So it was very important to get all the stakeholders' views, understanding their views, and having their views reflected into policies, measures that will be incorporated in our manifesto. At the end of the day, we want to have a national buy-in, national ownership of the plans and the goals and the policies to take our country forward. And this was an important step in doing so.
Okay, well, as you know, during this, what we call the elections period, a lot of people look at the various candidates and to see what it is they have to offer and to make their own assessments, who should I vote for? So what would you say? Why should people vote for Irfaan Ali?
Well, thank you again, Davina. First of all, I am proud to be associated with a team. And that team is the People's Progressive Party Civic. And I'm a team player, and that team brings to the table various skill sets that are important in managing the affairs of our country, in creating an efficient and reliable government, in creating a secure environment in which we live. And you know from history, the PPP has always delivered on its promises. We are a team that is committed to whatever we say in our manifesto. We don't just develop a manifesto to win votes and with no intention of implementing what we have in the manifesto. We are going to implement our manifesto. So what you will see from the next PPPC government is one that will create a society where there's social justice, a society that is free, a country that is globally competitive, one that creates economic opportunity for all, ensuring equitable distribution of resources and equality for all Guyanese, and a society that is secure from crime, and one that is progressive, one that ensures that the business community and the private sector grow, while at the same time promoting a pro-poor approach to growth and development, so that we don't have widening disparity or a huge gap between the have and the have-not.
Yes.
And all of this will lead to a society in which every Guyanese should own their own home. Every Guyanese must have access to good health care, world-class health care with the type of resources that we'll have. Should have access to education and all social services. They should retire in peace, knowing that they can live a comfortable life after retirement. Ensure that a society is built on the creation of jobs, ensuring that there is good income, people have better paying jobs, greater disposable income, and opportunities are there for everyone. That is the type of society that would engender confidence, as a society that would be positive, one that every Guyanese would want to be a part of. So this is the type of things that one should vote for.
Yeah.
A government that believes in democracy, that will uphold the Constitution, a government that would uphold the rule of law, and one that would not trample upon the rights of people.
Yeah. So now these are all a lot of promises, and in Guyana's history, we've seen many times promises made on the political trail are not often fulfilled. What assurances will you or can you give voters that a PPP government will fulfill these promises?
Well, Davina, the assurances are basically in the track record. If you look at the track record of the People's Progressive Party, you would see that in more than 90% of the manifesto promises were implemented. We don't make promises that are not attainable or not reachable, and so you just have to go by a track record. For us, it's a track record of the last 4 years. The promises that were broken, promises that were meant basically to buy votes, and not promises that were meant to be demonstrated in policies to improve the lives of people. So you just have to go back to the track record. And my own track record at the Ministry of Housing, all the targets that were set in the manifesto were exceeded. The private sector and the ministry had an excellent relationship. The civil society, for a matter of fact, most of what we achieve in the housing, water sector, even for the while I was at tourism, industry and commerce, was built on partnership. And partnership is critical, ensuring that people are involved in the process, ensuring that people feel as if they are part of the decision making, and it creates ownership. And once you create ownership, you'll create confidence, and people would be more at ease.
Yeah.
So you also have to, one of the things that we're going to implement in the next government is a strong monitoring mechanism. And that monitoring mechanism should give you periodic, whether it's quarterly, half-yearly, an annual analysis of the manifesto promises and what has been achieved, and which targets we are not on top of.
Yeah.
So it will be measurable. And in the manifesto, you will see it's designed in such a way that the population can measure us against the progress we are making in relation to the manifesto, and against the progress we are making as a nation. And this is important. You know, sometimes we look at development from a one-dimensional window. You have to look at the multi-dimensional aspect of development and transformation. And this is a type of thinking that we have to embrace as we move forward. Government has to be more accountable.
Yes.
To the people, and in accountable I don't mean only accountable in expenditure and in action,
Yes.
but accountable in relation to their promises, because your manifesto is a social contract with the people. Your manifesto is basically a contract between you and the people. They elect you based on what you have in the manifesto. And definitely we take this very seriously, and our track record will show how seriously we take this, and that would not change. For a matter of fact, we'll work hard in ensuring that every aspect of our manifesto is implemented. For this to happen, though, you have to develop a manifesto itself that is implementable.
Yes.
And that is what the population would have to look at. You have to be able to understand what is implementable, what is practical, what is achievable, what is realistic, against what is just wishy-washy, and what is just a set of promises stringed together to get your votes. We see this in the last elections. We saw political leaders in our countries running away from their own promises, whether it was to rice farmers, whether it was to the sugar workers, the sugar industry, businesses, teachers, nurses, the public servants. And it's wrong. It's wrong. But the voters also, they have a responsibility to analyze and to ensure that they make decisions and choices in the best interests of their families and in the best interests of the country and the future and their children.
So on the topic of promises and manifestos, one of the main promises that the current government made is to improve the situation in the security sector. Do you think they have delivered?
Well, I mean, the statistics speak for itself. And if you look at and let us forget the stats for a moment, and let us look at the general feeling on the ground. And as I said, I visited a number of communities. I had the unfortunate duty of visiting some of those who would have lost loved ones in various crime, whether it's piracy, banditry, or murders, and so on. It's a very painful experience. And it's something that you have to go there to understand the pain that people go through, that communities go through. And in all my visits throughout the country, forgetting the stats that demonstrate that there is no improvement, people are not safe. Even yourself, even if you ask yourself, am I safer today than yesterday? The answer is no. And this is the answer all over Guyana. Households, housewives, the working class, working people, business people, they all feel as if they're not safe, that it's insecure, they don't have the confidence that they're living in a safe society.
Yeah.
So that by itself answers the question. Now we have to be realistic. We can't hide from the reality. The reality is that crime and security of our people is a major concern. It is one of their top priorities. In some communities, it is the most important ranked priority for them. And it is the most important ranked priority because it is a problem.
Yeah. And
we can only be able to address the problem if we accept that there is a problem. So yes, that they have failed miserably on crime and security, and this was their major plank that they campaign on. And you will see in the manifesto a clearly defined strategy in dealing with various forms of crime. Because as the country becomes more prosperous, there are also more sophisticated criminals globally looking at Guyana as a destination for crime. This is the reality. This is what development, growth, and advancement brings to our country. And we can't only be playing catch up. So at the position we are in fighting crime now, to fight the existing crime, we are fighting from back. There's a gap between where we are and where we have to be in fighting the existing crime. But we can't work only on catching up to fight the existing crime. We have to ensure that we start planning ahead and put systems in place, ensure that our strategy for crime, that our strategy for security embraces possible threats in the future.
And does the PPP have that? Does the PPP have strategies and policies to address those very things you were talking about?
You will see a clearly defined strategy in the manifesto on all aspects of crime and security to ensure not only security now, but ensure that we safeguard ourselves from the possibility of more sophisticated crimes in the future. Yes. It's important.
So let's look at the broader picture. There are many parties, new parties emerging on the political scene leading up to elections next year. Do you see them as a threat to the PPP, to PPP's campaign?
Look, as presidential candidate of the People's Progressive Party Civic, our focus is on winning the elections. Our focus is on including every stakeholder. on the journey towards winning the elections and governing in the interests of all Guyanese. We are a national party. So I'm not really paying too much attention to the new parties that are emerging.
Yeah.
It's a democratic society, it's a free society, and we don't criticize anyone who believe that that they have a contribution to make, but they will have to evaluate their own chances.
Yes.
What I can speak on definitively is that the People's Progressive Party will win the next elections. The support is there on the ground. The support is growing there, and we are not going to be complacent. It's not us arrogantly saying this. We are saying this because we have been going out there and doing the work. The General Secretary put it that we have been also doing the heavy lifting. I mean, there are various issues at GCOM. There are issues that all the stakeholders who want to be the government in the future should be addressing also.
Yes.
But the heavy lifting is left on the People's Progressive Party. We don't have a problem with this because it's our duty. We are a party that is built on principles and policy. We are an institution in Guyana, and we see it as our moral and social responsibility to speak out, speak against, and to stand up in defense of the Constitution, in defense of democracy, the rule of law, and in defense of all measures that would ensure free and fair elections.
Mm-hmm. Coming back to campaign promises, one of the major promises we see being made at almost every political campaign season is that to stamp out corruption. President Granger, during a recent interview, said he indicated that there were no acts of corruption within his government. Do you agree?
Well, this is the problem. When you are so far away from the reality of your government, when you're so far away from the reality of what is actually taking place. I don't know if President Granger had a chance to read the Auditor General report. Let's start from that.
Yes.
The Auditor General report and the PSC, the work of the PSC. I know you would have covered some of those PSC meetings.
Yes.
The evidence is clear. If you look at the Auditor General report, breaches in tender board procedures, breaches in the awarding of tender evaluation committee, non-supply of drugs and payments being made for buildings and the building hasn't even started, mismanagement, it's all there. It is there. The Auditor General has highlighted it in his report. The PSC has highlighted it. But someone is definitely not living in the reality. And we have highlighted numerous instances of glaring corruption that are massive in scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate and maybe point to some?
Well, as I said, you go to the Auditor General report.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to the Auditor General report, you will see a number of issues that are highlighted that are definitely does not subscribe to accountability and transparency. Yes. Then you have the whole issue of land distribution. Mm-hmm. You have the whole issue. There was no tender process. There was no public process through which these allocations were made. You have the drugs, the issue of not only drug bond, but the purchase of drugs.
Yes.
And that has not been dealt with. You had reports from the Procurement Commission, mm-hmm. and those reports were just cast aside. And those reports point specifically to breaches in the procurement system. So there are so many examples. There are so many examples there, and it is clear that somebody is not dealing with the reality.
Mr. Ali, given your responses here, how would you respond to similar accusations? That there were levels of corruption within the previous PPP administration.
Well, we have answered this before. First of all, we were accused wrongfully on many issues. Take, for example, the Marriott Hotel. Remember all the noise about corruption? That was a corrupt deal. The Marriott Hotel was a corrupt deal. It was Jagdeo Hotel. Remember the airport project? Now the airport project is costing more and we're getting less. Mm-hmm. So you had the airport project, you had the Marriott Hotel, and so many other examples that were used as corruption. This government has completed millions of dollars in audits, and not done by the Auditor General, audits done by forensic audits done by auditors selected by the government itself. What has been the result? You hear today that major accusations that were leveled against the government, oh, there is no evidence, there is not enough evidence, and those are the accusations that was peddled against us. Notwithstanding this, however, there were areas of weaknesses, there were areas in which there were breaches, and these areas were also highlighted in the Auditor General report. And if you look at the Auditor General report, and you look at the systems that were put in place, and you do a traceability analysis, you will see that there would have been consistent improvement. Look at our financial laws, Fiscal Management and Accountability Act and so. These are all new laws, new regulations that were brought in place to improve accountability and transparency. Mm-hmm. And then look at, for example, we have taken away the power for granting duty-free from the Minister of Finance. Mm-hmm. This has been reversed. The politicians had no role in this. And this was a type of advancement, and some of it has been reversed. So the facts and the proof is really out there for us to do our own analysis.
Yes. So going forward, how would Irfaan Ali, if elected as president, address issues of or allegations of corruption within an Irfaan Ali-led government? Will there be sanctions or any sort of investigations into officials?
Yes, definitely. We have to deal with issues of accountability and transparency, especially given the fact that we will have oil and gas. We have to adopt higher standards in terms of public officials and public office, and we have to ensure that the Auditor General is equipped, is given the necessary tools and funding, budgetary funding, that the training is provided so that they are equipped and they're capable, they're efficient, and they have the necessary skill set to address new and emerging issues in dealing with corruption. And also, one of the things that we are looking at is to have civil society also play a role in the transparency and accountability and even the audits and reviewing expenditure, especially in the oil and gas sector.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the oil and gas sector. That is a very talked about topic, especially leading up to elections next year. A lot of people are eager to see the plans our politicians have for this sector. They're anticipating that the newly found wealth from this industry to be used to improve the lives of people and to transform the country. What is the PPP's plan for this?
Well, you have really touched a very important note. And first of all, the future is not only about oil and gas. To view the future as only an oil and gas future would be you will not be doing justice to the economic potential of our country. The oil and gas sector, of course, would be an impetus to advance the other sectors at a very faster rate. So we have to ensure that in advancing the other sector, we advance it in a competitive environment so that we remain globally competitive, and we also invest in new areas, mm-hmm. emerging areas that can bring tremendous benefit to our people and our country. So the use of the oil resources is important. But the important issues that we have to look at, one is transparency and accountability. We have already said we are going to adopt the Santiago principles, and ensuring accountability and transparency, we also have to ensure that there are regular audits, that the expenditure by government from oil and gas resources passes through a proper parliamentary system, mm-hmm. not hidden in any way, not hidden from the population, and they must be you must be held criminally liable for non-disclosure of expenditure or revenue in the oil and gas sector. We will be looking at ways in which a civil society will be involved in the monitoring and ensuring accountability and transparency in this sector. The Sovereign Wealth Fund would be developed and will be at an arm's length relationship with the government. Expenditure out of this fund must be approved properly through parliamentary process. And then you have the regulations. The regulations now, you see the political arm, the executive, playing a dominant role. That cannot be the way we handle our oil and resources, oil and gas resources. They must be professionals. We have to train a group of professionals in every aspect of oil and gas and the downstream industries it will bring, so that we can manage the oil and gas sector ourselves. We can have the capacity in the future. Then we also have to ensure that resources are used for social safety nets, to ensure their transfers, yes, cash transfer, but transfer in a way that is targeted transfers to the vulnerable, the elderly, to ensure that there's not disparity, inequality, and then we also have to ensure that we manage the resources in such a way that we save for future generations.
Yes.
The important thing about oil and gas is the transformative agenda it brings with it. And that transformative agenda must be one that not only rebuild our infrastructure, not only be one that create new opportunities, but it is one that open up new areas for more jobs, for higher paying jobs, whether it's in the hotel industry. We'll have 3-4 new hotels here very quickly, whether it's in the logistics industry, the Deepwater Harbor, they're opening up new trade routes, and with the road to Lethem, bridging the Quarantine River. These are all investments that are linked to oil and gas, and we can move at a faster pace with these transformational type of investment, because of the resources from oil and gas, and not only the resources from oil and gas, because the country would have the capacity to back investment like this.
Yes. So from there, let's take a look at the business community in general. President Granger, during his recent interview, made a statement, or several statements. He has said that the business community should not depend or look forward to handouts, and that he doesn't see any sort of innovation and investments, within the business community for them to propel themselves.
Well,
do you agree with him?
Well, let me disagree totally. First of all, like any organization, there are weaknesses. But to belittle our private sector to that extent is unfortunate. I think our private sector in Guyana has done well under difficult circumstances. Our private sector not only grew and expanded our economy, our private sector not only contributed to positive development. Look at the partnership in the construction sector, in building homes and so on. This private sector brought us through several hurdles, political hurdles. You remember there was a period of political unrest during the PPP government. There was a crime period that was deemed different ways by different people.
Yeah.
There was the Great Flood, and our private sector responded every time positively. Our private sector really put Guyana on the map. If you look at the growth of Guyana and how Guyana was described even before we found oil and gas, you will see that the Caribbean Development Bank, the IDB, the IMF, all spoke positively of Guyana in the light of the rising star in Latin America and the Caribbean, without oil and gas. Mm-hmm. And this was achieved because you had a government with clearly defined policies, with clear measures, and a private sector that worked hard, and a private sector that contributed positively. So, and the private sector had to be innovative. The private sector had to be strategic during that period for the country and businesses to achieve such success.
Yes.
So, and this links us back to oil and gas. If we want our private sector to be globally competitive, if we want our private sector to invest in the technology that would ensure that they have a major stake in the future, in the technology that would ensure they remain relevant for the future, then we have to give the private sector the incentives. And this is the type of thinking that has really affected mining and forestry. All the incentives was taken away from mining, forestry, agriculture, fishery, aquaculture, and we have to give back those incentives and give more. We have to give more because the private sector, we need to stimulate growth in the private sector so that they can expand and create more opportunities with higher paying jobs for Guyanese. So we can't say on one hand our private sector is not equipped to grab the opportunities in the future, and on the other hand we're not giving them the incentives, the fiscal incentives and the monetary incentives and the tax incentives to make them capable, to equip them to grab those opportunities and create the wealth here. And that is a type of thinking also that is a hindrance to the local content. So we have to be able in our education system also to provide the necessary training to equip our people with the skill sets, the knowledge, and we have to support the private sector in this knowledge transfer.
Yeah.
So these are important things. I want to see the private sector play a leading role in the construction sector, in the housing sector, a leading role in terms of ecotourism. We have to give them incentives so that they can invest, so that they can, the private sector does a lot in promoting our country. With resources available to us, we have to do more from a marketing perspective, from a regulatory perspective. And whilst the sophisticated tourists want to see certain things in place that will ensure their safety as tourists, we have to, yes, bring those regulations in place, but we also have to give the companies in the tourism sector the incentives that would help them to meet those requirements.
Yeah.
That is the way we're going. We can't speak about aquaculture. We're not giving any incentives to promote aquaculture and to get people to invest in aquaculture. I mean, that is a type of thinking that has really stymied the development of business and the development of the private sector that we have to change.
Yeah.
That is why our General Secretary said very clearly, our pathway must be one that creates opportunities for every Guyanese, every segment of the population. It must be supportive of private sector initiative, whilst at the same time there must be a poor approach to growth and development so that there is equitable distribution and all aspects, all facets of our society are included in the development pie of our country.
Yeah. So, Mr. Ali, we can go on forever because there are so many other issues we can talk about, but let's just end with this final question. Do you think the PPP has what it takes to win the next elections?
Well, first of all, the PPP has always had the technical knowledge, the know-how, and the plans and capabilities to win an election. What we have is the love of the people. What we have is a commitment to the people. What we have is a social contract in our manifesto that we are committed to. What we have is a commitment to democracy, the rule of law, a commitment to freedom, a commitment to ensuring our country is globally competitive, a commitment for the equitable distribution of resources, a commitment to ensure social justice, a commitment to have a safe and secure environment in which all our people live, a commitment in which everyone can have access to world-class education, world-class health care, can retire in pride, can have facilities that would give them a good retirement, recreational facilities. And sometimes we don't spend enough time talking about the softer side, the human side of being in government. But going into the communities offered me an example, a bird's eye view of how simple things mean a lot on the ground. Pensioners in some communities, they have nothing to look forward to. We have to ensure that in the plans, and you'll see this in the manifesto, we develop recreational facilities not only for the youth, so we'll have world-class multi-purpose centers in every single region, but we also have proper facilities, recreational facilities, and zones in which the elderly can enjoy a peaceful retirement,
Yeah.
and a society in which there are good jobs, good paying jobs, improved livelihood, and better conditions for every single Guyanese.
All right. Thank you very much for your time,
Thank you.
Mr. Ali, and thank you guys for tuning in. Do join us again for another one of our programs.